Welcome to the Copperfield Electric Podcast.
Glad to be here.
So, picture this. You just parked your brand new EV in the garage, right?
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah, you plug it into that standard wall outlet, you look at the dashboard, and it says something like, time to full charge, 3 business days.
Which is just, it's a completely rude awakening for new owners.
Totally. So naturally, you do what anyone does. You jump online, you start Googling commercial-grade EV chargers for home. You want the absolute fastest, most powerful setup you can just bolt to your garage wall.
Right.
But what does that actually entail when you start looking at the infrastructure hiding behind the drywall of your house?
Well, it is a vastly different landscape back there than what those glossy marketing brochures show you. We all love the idea of simple plug-and-play technology, but moving electricity at that kind of scale, it introduces physics and engineering challenges that you just cannot ignore.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We're going to cut through all that marketing jargon about these high-powered EV chargers, figure out what a standard home electrical system can actually handle, and really determine if investing in commercial-level power is truly worth your money.
It's an important conversation to have before you buy the hardware.
Definitely. And to guide this exploration, we're drawing on source material from Copperfield Electric. They are a really trusted, family-owned, 24-hour electrician out in Southern California.
Right.
They're licensed, and that's license number 1094740 for those keeping track-bonded and background-checked professionals. They serve all over Orange County. So we're talking Irvine, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, right down to Mission Viejo.
Which is actually a perfect source for this. Because these technicians, the ones out in the field, pulling the copper wire and running the actual load tests, they see exactly where those theoretical marketing promises completely crash into the hard physical reality of residential power grids.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because asking for a commercial charger at your home feels a bit like, asking to install a commercial jet engine on your Honda Civic.
That's a great way to put it.
It doesn't fit. So before we can even install one, we need to clarify what the industry actually means by commercial grade. Like, what is the fundamental difference between those level 3 chargers at highway rest stops and a level 2 setup?
Well, your jet engine analogy is spot on. When the average person hears commercial charger, they immediately picture those massive DC fast chargers, right? The level 3 stations that get a car to 80% battery in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly what I picture.
But here's the reality. True commercial charging, true level 3, requires 3-phase high voltage power.
Wait, 3-phase? Because I know normal residential homes run on single-phase power, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So from an engineering standpoint, what makes 3-phase power so critical for that? Why can't we just push more power through the standard single-phase line?
It comes down to how the energy is actually delivered. So in a standard single-phase system, the alternating current takes the form of a single sine wave.
Okay.
That means the voltage actually drops to 0 momentarily between cycles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for your household appliances, that drop is totally imperceptible. Your fridge doesn't care. But for moving massive amounts of DC power into a huge car battery, it's highly inefficient.
Ah, got it.
3-phase power uses 3 distinct alternating currents that are offset from one another. Because they overlap, the total power delivered never actually drops to 0. You get this smooth, continuous, incredibly dense transfer of energy.
Oh, I see. So it's basically the difference between, like, pedaling a bicycle with one leg, where you have bed spots in your momentum, versus pedaling an engine with 3 pistons firing in sequence.
Exactly. Constant, smooth torque. And that continuous delivery requires a completely different grid infrastructure. Getting 3-phase power to a residential address would mean petitioning your local utility to literally run new heavy-duty lines to your property.
Which they probably don't want to do.
Residential utilities almost never approve that for a single-family home.
Yeah.
And even if you somehow got approval, the transformers, the specialized metering, the level 3 hardware itself, it all adds up to a bill that often exceeds the cost of the car you're trying to charge.
Wow. Okay, so the dream of a highway rest stop supercharger in my driveway is officially dead.
Pretty much.
So if true level 3 is off the table, what are these companies actually selling when they say commercial grade for a home?
Right. What they're actually selling is a high-output level 2 charger.
Okay.
Most standard level 2 chargers, like the ones that plug into a typical 240-volt dryer outlet, they run between 32 and 48 amps. When you step into what they call commercial grade for residential, you're looking at a hardwired unit designed to draw anywhere from 48 to 80 amps.
So it's still single-phase power?
Yes. It operates on your standard single-phase power, but it pushes that residential infrastructure to its absolute maximum limit.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because let's say I accept that I'm getting a high output 80 amp level 2 charger. If my house has a 200 amp electrical panel,
Which is pretty standard for newer homes, yeah.
right, and my main breaker hasn't tripped, why is the electrical panel such a big deal? I mean, basic arithmetic says 200 minus 80 leaves me with 120 amps. I have plenty of room. Can't I just buy the charger, find a big outlet, and plug it in?
I hear that logic all the time, but it completely ignores how electrical headroom actually functions under a load, specifically a continuous load.
Okay, how so?
Your panel's 200 amp rating is just the absolute maximum capacity the bus bars can safely distribute from the street before the main breaker cuts power to prevent, a catastrophic failure.
Right, to stop a fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to analyze concurrent demand. Let's look at a standard modern home on a really hot July evening. Your central HVAC is running full blast, which is a massive draw.
True.
Someone is cooking dinner on an electric induction stove, the electric water heater kicks on, and maybe the dryer is tumbling a load of towels.
Oh, right. So all of those appliances are firing at the exact same time, which means that 120 amp buffer I thought I had is shrinking rapidly.
Rapidly and significantly. In that scenario, your home might already be pulling 100 to 120 amps.
Wow.
Yeah. If you then plug in an EV charger demanding a continuous 80 amps, you are instantly brushing against or even exceeding the physical limits of that panel.
That is terrifying.
And there's a critical distinction in the National Electrical Code for EV chargers.
Oh.
They are classified as continuous loads, which means they run for 3 hours or more.
Okay, and that changes things.
It changes everything. The code requires continuous loads to be supplied by circuit size at 125% of the demand.
Ah, so you need a buffer built in.
Exactly. So an 80 amp charger actually requires a 100 amp dedicated breaker and wiring.
Wait, but if I miscalculate that load, doesn't the branch breaker just trip? I mean, we treat a tripped breaker as an annoyance, but isn't it basically an infallible safety mechanism?
It is a safety mechanism, yes, but relying on it as your primary load management strategy is incredibly risky.
Why is that?
This is where we have to talk about the physics of resistance heating. When you push electricity through copper wire, it encounters resistance, which generates heat.
Makes sense.
If a circuit is undersized, or if a panel is overcrowded and running at its maximum thermal limit, the internal temperatures rise. Breakers are mechanical devices. They can fail.
Wait, really?
Oh, absolutely. Or their trip curves can be altered by constant, excessive ambient heat.
So what you're saying is that the breaker isn't a foolproof safety net. The actual physical limitations of the copper wire and the panel's thermal capacity, that dictates the safety, not just the switch itself.
Precisely. If that breaker fails to trip immediately when it's overloaded by a continuous load, you experience something called joule heating.
Joule heating.
Yes. The wire gets hot, which increases its electrical resistance, which makes it even hotter. It's a compounding loop.
Oh, man.
Over time, that thermal cycling degrades the plastic insulation around the wires. It gets brittle, it cracks, and it exposes the bare copper.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
It is. You end up with an active, high-temperature electrical fault buried deep inside your drywall. You honestly won't know it's there until the smoke alarms go off.
Which completely explains why a formal load calculation isn't just like a friendly suggestion. It's the non-negotiable step that dictates the entire project.
100%. The electrician isn't just looking at the number printed on your main switch. They are mathematically charting your home's realistic peak demand to find your true remaining capacity.
Right. And looking at the source material, it seems like upgrading to a 200 amp or even a 400 amp panel is an incredibly common prerequisite before installing this kind of equipment.
It is exceptionally common, especially for homes built more than 20 years ago, which often sit on 100 amp services. If you have an older 100 amp panel running your HVAC, water heater, kitchen appliances, there is literally zero room for a new 60 or 80 amp circuit.
Right. You're already maxed out.
Exactly. Upgrading the panel provides that necessary electrical runway so your new continuous load doesn't compromise the whole structure.
Okay, so the physics demands respect. This clearly isn't a DIY weekend project. But I want to explore the regulatory side of this for a second.
Sure.
Because if I do my own load calculation and I hire a professional to put in the right wire, why does the city building inspector need to be involved? Like, Is the city really going to care what I do inside my own closed garage?
Oh, they definitely care. The jurisdiction comes from the National Electrical Code, specifically Article 625, which explicitly governs the installation of electric vehicle charging systems.
Okay.
The city enforces this code because a fire in your garage doesn't just stay in your garage. It threatens neighboring structures and first responders.
That makes perfect sense.
And even beyond the municipality, your homeowner's insurance company cares deeply. If an unpermitted high-draw electrical installation causes a fire, that is immediate grounds for a denied insurance claim.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the liability totally extends beyond the property line. So what does the actual compliant installation sequence look like then?
Well, it's a highly structured process. Step one is a comprehensive site visit. Where is this charger actually going?
Right, location matters.
Exactly. If it's mounted on an exterior wall or, say, a standalone driveway pedestal, the code mandates specific weatherproof outdoor-rated enclosures to isolate that 80-amp flow from moisture.
Which you wouldn't need inside a garage.
Right. Then step two is that formal load calculation we just discussed. Skipping this is actually the #1 reason projects go completely over budget.
Because if you skip the math, buy a super expensive 80-amp unit, and then discover your panel maxes out at 40 available amps.
You're suddenly forced into a multi-$1,000 panel upgrade you didn't plan for just to make your new toy work.
That is a brutal surprise.
It is. The hardware has to dictate the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So once the load calc is verified, you move to step 3, permitting and, crucially, utility coordination.
Now that is interesting. Why do I need to coordinate with the utility? They're already delivering the power to my meter, right? I just pay for whatever I pull through it.
You pay for the energy, sure. But the utility owns the local distribution infrastructure, and that infrastructure has strict thermal and capacity limits, too.
Really? Well, like what?
We have to look at the street-level transformer. Typically, residential areas use those pad-mounted or pole-mounted transformers, and they're rated for a specific capacity, often around 25 to 50 kVA, or kilovolt amps.
Okay.
One of the transformers might be shared by 4 or 5 houses on your block, and the utility sizes that equipment based on historical standard residential demand.
Ah, I see where this is going. Because an 80-amp EV charger running at 240 volts, that's pulling about 19.2 kilowatts.
Yes.
That is a massive sustained draw.
It's massive. If your home suddenly starts demanding an extra 19 kilowatts for 6 hours every single night, and then maybe your neighbor decides to install one too,
Oh, man.
the combined continuous draw can easily exceed the shared transformer's kVA rating. The transformer overheats, blows a fuse, and takes out the power for the entire block.
So you aren't just pushing the limits of your own drywall. You are fundamentally altering the demand profile of your neighborhood's shared grid.
Precisely. Utilities need to know if you are adding that kind of localized strain so they can evaluate if the grid infrastructure itself needs an upgrade.
That's wild.
And what's fascinating here is how a licensed professional, like the team at Copperfield Electric, seamlessly handles all this utility coordination.
So you don't have to deal with it.
Right. So the project doesn't just stall mid-permit while you're stuck on hold with the power company. They navigate the code nuances so you don't have to spend hours arguing with a city inspector.
There is immense value in delegating that regulatory headache, for sure.
Absolutely. And then step 4 is the actual dedicated circuit run, the final connections, and rigorous testing.
Okay, so we've outlined the physics of heat resistance, the absolute necessity of panel upgrades, the strict NEC code compliance, and the neighborhood grid constraints. This all converges on the most crucial question for anyone listening. Let's talk money and habits.
Let's do it.
A commercial building runs chargers 247. My house does not. What is the actual price tag here, and am I basically overpaying for power I'm sleeping through?
That is the ultimate test of value. Let's break down the hard numbers from our sources.
Yeah.
If you opt for a standard level 2 setup, say a 40 to 48 amp charger, the total installation, including the hardware, wiring, and permitting, generally falls between $750 and $2,500.
This seems like a really reasonable capital expenditure for a major home upgrade.
It is. It's very standard. But when you insist on that 80-amp commercial-grade setup, the costs scale aggressively. The heavy-duty charger and the thicker specialized wiring required for that 100-amp dedicated circuit, that pushes the base installation up to anywhere between $1,500 and $4,000.
So the entry point effectively doubles.
Yeah.
But earlier, we established that a massive continuous draw often triggers the need for a panel upgrade. Does that $4,000 cover the new panel?
It absolutely does not. If your load calculation proves you need a 200 or 400 amp service upgrade to safely carry that load, you're looking at an additional $1,800 to $4,500, just for the panel and the utility disconnect work.
Let's run that math. If I need a new panel to create the electrical headroom and I purchase the top-tier 80-amp hardware, my total outlay could easily hit $8,500.
Very easily. Which begs an important question. Who is actually deriving enough value from an 80-amp home charger to justify an $8,500 infrastructure investment?
Right. From a practical standpoint, if I commute 40 miles a day, my car sits in the garage for at least 10 hours every single night. A standard 40-amp charger running while I sleep will completely replenish that battery with hours to spare. Why would I pay thousands of dollars extra just so the car finishes charging at 1 a.m. instead of 4 a.m.? I'm asleep either way.
You've hit on the exact logic that homeowners need to apply. You should really only cross that financial threshold into commercial-grade power if you fit into one of three distinct use cases.
Okay, what are they?
First, you operate a multi-EV household, and you have to rapidly cycle two different cars on the same charger overnight.
That makes sense.
Second, you own a vehicle with an exceptionally large battery pack, like a heavy-duty electric pickup truck, such as the F-150 Lightning.
Right, because a standard 40-amp charger simply cannot physically move enough energy in an 8-hour window to fill a truck like that.
Exactly. Filling a 130 kilowatt-hour truck battery requires entirely different logistics than filling a standard commuter sedan.
Got it. And the third use case?
It's pure future-proofing. If you are already planning a holistic home energy upgrade like adding a massive solar array and a whole home battery backup system, it makes logistical and financial sense to upgrade the panel and install high-capacity circuits all at once.
Right, just do it all while the walls are open.
Exactly. But outside of those scenarios, a standard 40 or 48 amp level 2 charger provides total utility for a fraction of the cost and complexity. Most single EV households get full value from that.
So the major takeaway here is to not let high-performance marketing goad you into over-engineering your home.
Exactly.
Match the hardware to your actual driving habits and battery capacity, not to some theoretical desire for maximum speed.
Sound engineering is always about appropriate scaling.
Well said. We have dissected a massive amount of technical reality today. Let's recap the critical insights from this deep dive.
Right.
First, true level 3DC fast chargers are fundamentally incompatible with standard residential infrastructure due to the necessity of three-phase power. The commercial-grade units marketed for home use are actually high-capacity level 2 chargers that max out at 80 amps.
And pushing 80 continuous amps through a single-family home means the electrical panel and its remaining capacity become the ultimate arbiters of safety.
Absolutely. The mandatory load calculation isn't just bureaucratic red tape. It's the mathematical shield that prevents the Joule heating effect from silently degrading the insulation on your wires and starting a fire inside your walls. And finally, unless you are charging a heavy-duty electric truck or juggling multiple EVs, a standard 40-amp level 2 setup will seamlessly handle your daily commute while saving you thousands in unnecessary panel upgrades.
It all comes down to evaluating your infrastructure, realistically.
Definitely. And if you are listening to this staring at your panel right now and wondering exactly how much electrical headroom you actually have left, you don't have to guess. The professionals who provided our source material today, Copperfield Electric, specialize in untangling these exact infrastructural limits.
They really do.
They operate 24/7 to handle everything from load calculations and EV chargers to panel upgrades and LED lighting across Southern California. They offer 100% satisfaction guaranteed service. Whether you need a rigorous load calculation or a complete panel upgrade, their licensed team has the expertise to execute it flawlessly. So if you're anywhere in Orange County, let the seasoned experts look behind your drywall.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to look beyond our own garages. Consider the localized grid strain we discussed earlier. Think about the future of your neighborhood's grid. If automotive trends continue, and eventually every single house on your block upgrades to a 200-amp panel to run an 80-amp commercial-grade charger,
Oh, wow.
how will the local utility transformers manage when an entire neighborhood demands that massive, continuous surge of power simultaneously at 6:00 p.m. every evening?
That is a staggering engineering challenge for the utilities. I mean, we aren't just talking about upgrading homes anymore. We are looking down the barrel of a complete systemic overhaul of the residential power grid.
It's a transition that requires incredible planning.
Well, that wraps up our analysis for today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we will see you on the next one.